My name is Kimberly Jackson, and I am the Executive Director for the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions, or as we call it, ISPS. I'm sitting in this beautiful hallway that was dedicated to Congressman C.W, a statesman, a person who cared about the community and put his time and talent to make sure that Pinellas County was a better place to live. It's been 10+ years since he passed, but his footprint is everywhere. It's how we drive on our beautiful highways. It's in our hospitals where we see services. It's in our education system. It's in our beautiful municipal and county buildings. Congressman Young cared about the appropriate scope of government, and the Institute is a tribute to that. You see, the Institute is a think tank embedded in St. Petersburg College for the benefit of the Florida college system. We convene people from all over, nonprofits, individuals, for-profits, or just in general, the community who cares and wants to know about the appropriate scope of government and care about public discourse and making our community better. It's at this juncture that we want to celebrate his legacy by doing a reflection piece, not just on his work, but also on the Institute that he left for us. We're honored to serve him and to serve in his legacy. We hope you'll join us and view the wonderful things that he did for our community.
This is a really exciting day. To be formalizing this institute that has been the dream of so many for such a long time. This institute has a tremendous opportunity to prepare people, young or old, to have a job that's appointed, to have a job that is elected, and to give them a little bit of a head start on what is that job all about? What are the responsibilities of that job? The purpose of this institute is not to teach anybody how to run a political campaign. It is not intended to be political in any way, shape, or form. It is not intended to determine a person's political philosophy. It is just to help people understand our government, understand our Constitution, understand how laws are made and how laws are affected.
Whenever you plan something new, you have all the visions of what you want to see, and then it's easier to plan it than it is to implement. When Congressman Young came up with this concept of having an institute working with the then president of the college, Carl Cutler, I got thrown into the mix from the city perspective and worked it through the way you have to do it. Was involved with the congressman and also was involved with the state legislators to get the state to agree. I think it was designed to bring people from different interests and different perspectives together to listen to each other talk, and then to be able to cross over and say, that's a good point. Or maybe we should look at this, or maybe we should look at that. And it brought the different opinions to each side to give them a takeaway of some school of thought and to hopefully have progress.
Around 2008, that I think that Congressman Young and also Harry Glenn, who was his senior staff in Washington, were having a discussion with Dr. Carl Cutler, president at the time, about wouldn't it be a great thing in the future if the college could have some kind of a program that would be nonpartisan and at the same time involve students in the community on the local, state, and federal issues.
President Cutler talked to Congressman Young, and the decision eventually was made, let's set up a district office here. And then Dr. Cutler had the idea, well, we should have as part of that office create an institute for public policy to talk about ways in which policies develop to encourage people to engage in public service, to encourage people to run for public office, to encourage people to vote, to be involved more civically at the time. And I'm not sure we knew at the time exactly where this would go and how it would evolve.
Congressman Young approached us about doing a think tank or a government institute. Different names were used in the beginning. And Graham came along also to talk about, there's not a community college version of the other two. And he also was on board with something like this. At the time, we didn't know we were going to get legislation actually to help us get going. So we took the proposal to the legislature, they actually jumped on it and thought the idea was good for the 28 colleges to have a group similar to the Graham Center. They provided us with $5 million as a line item in the appropriations bill. The college promised that if we were to get that, we would seek other funds as well, work with all 28 colleges, and indeed not ask for state funds again. It was a bit of an interesting thing. Without Congressman Young, it wouldn't have happened because the money was taken out of the budget, the base budget request of the 28 colleges. So you'll see the 28 listed, and underneath it a line item for this institute. So, but there was no complaints. They understood what it was all about, and we moved forward.
Once we got funding, then the key was make it recurring funding. So to do that, we certainly had to show that St. Petersburg College had a valid program to justify the recurring funding. So as soon as we got things kind of in order at St. Petersburg College, when I say in order, at that time I was the Vice President of Economic Development and Innovative Projects. So Dr. Law said, as we're moving forward, I want you to kind of keep me informed of your progress. So what happened then is the college went and advertised the program for an executive director. We started getting applications, and those applications kind of came in and they were reviewed by, I guess you would say, an ad hoc committee, so to speak. But as we went through the applications that were submitted, then we made our comments and referred them to Dr. Law for his review. And after reviewing them, he hired Dr. David Clement as the first executive director for the Institute.
Once I got things in motion, as a president, it goes across your desk and then you can't do the work. You got to get people to do the work. At the same time, St. Petersburg College was moving to have more baccalaureate programs in areas that make sense: public policy leadership, business, healthcare, things of common and current interest. So we thought this would be a good place for students to have internships, to be part and parcel of the dialogue, to expand their horizon, to make the learning more than just a seat in a classroom. And one thing led to another. It's hard to believe we've been at it for 10 years or more. It seems like forever, but it's worth doing. And I know since I've left, we've had some very, very important sessions under the umbrella of the Institute.
So when Dr. Law came to St. Petersburg College, this concept was already kind of in the wind, so to speak. And he was very supportive because as president of Tallahassee Community College, he was also involved in a program up there that involved the college and the community in a nonpartisan way, and that program was called the Village Square. So although our concept was a little different, it was certainly down that same road, and he was very supportive and recommended to our legislative delegation at that time that maybe his time had come to try and secure funding at the state level to basically start the program.
The Village Square became our roadmap for how we saw the Institute moving forward. And so we started planning little dinner meetings, and we launched the whole idea at this incredible lunch and sold out the conference center there at the college. It was just so much energy in the room. But because I had been around for so long and I am very connected in the community, I knew a lot of people, and I spent all of my time dialing them up on the phone and making sure that I had an RSVP for this very important lunch, that we were launching this incredible new idea. And if they really wanted to be in the know, they better make sure they were there.
I started working with Congressman Young when he was first elected in 1971. He called me on Christmas Eve in 1970, and he said, okay, I'm ready for you to come to work for me. And I said, okay, well, when do you want me to start? And he said, well, I'm going to be in Washington on January the 7th, so if you're going to work for me, you better be in Washington on January the 6th, you know. So that was the start of my career with the Congressman. And I worked with him for 35 and a half years or so, both in Washington and here in the district.
When he was first elected to public office in 1960 to the Florida State Senate, he was the only Republican in the Florida State Senate at the time. So he was a party of one. And so you think about, you know, if you're one member of the party, how do you get things done? And as everybody in Pinellas County knows, he was legendary at being able to deliver results for people. And one of the reasons, I think, is because he learned early on in his public service that you have to work with others if you're going to achieve anything.
He wasn't a politician whatsoever. He was a man that went in to help people, to pay it forward, because he quit school in 10th grade. He had to. His mom got ill. He had to quit to feed his brother and to feed his mother. He worked 2 jobs, you know, in 10th grade to feed. And I mean, this guy went from a 10th grade education to chairman of appropriations, handling $1 trillion budget. And he was the only member of Congress that was given special veto right over to be chairman of defense appropriations for the 3rd time, because you can only do it twice. But he did such a good job that they made a special, he's the only one in Congress they've ever done this for, allowed him to serve 3 terms.
I only got to meet with him a couple of times. He was a strong supporter of the college, really a great supporter. And he was very, very proud of the work he had done in his congressional life. Okay, he talked about, and he knew everybody. He was there for 30-something years. I mean, he was the guy, and he was in charge of everything. We had made arrangements to have his office on campus, and he had a very appropriate but nicely outfitted office at the Seminole campus. I think Bill probably started his career at a time when having friends on both sides of the aisle was a good idea, and sharing ideas was a good idea. And I think we captured that spirit for him. So he was always supportive of what we did.
My brothers and I, we grew up in what was a small town outside of DC in Virginia, and so when we were there, it really wasn't, you know, he wasn't getting recognized, and you know, he coached 3rd base for Little League, and he was just another parent. You know, obviously a lot of parents knew who he was, but it wasn't like when we were down here. When we were down here, you know, his favorite restaurant used to be Rogers Barbecue on, on Seminole Boulevard. We would go to Rogers, and it was almost a running joke with the wait staff there of how many times would people come up and say something to him at lunch or dinner. And down here, you know, he couldn't go anywhere without someone coming up to him. And he never minded. He didn't mind when people came up, you know, when people would have lunch with him, they'd be like, God, doesn't this get annoying, people coming up? And he said, absolutely not. You know, these people are all telling me about something they need. They're telling me about something I've done for them. And he understood that at the end of the day, that was his job, was to serve these people. And he loved it. I mean, he would sit there for hours and talk to anybody who wanted to talk. And that was just who he was. He was a small town guy at the end of the day. If you ever went to his Washington office, he had probably the best view in Washington. All behind him was the United States Capitol and the flags, and across from his desk, he kept a picture of the home that he grew up in, which was actually a tool shed on the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh during the Great Depression. He and his single mother lived in there with his little brother, and a flood washed it away. And he actually has an old picture of that house in the ice in the river of the Allegheny, and he kept it above there. And he would tell people that, you know, anytime he started to think he was important or someone special, he would look over there and remember where he came from. And he just kept that, you know, small town mentality his whole life. And he remembered what it was like to not have anyone looking out for him. So when he became a position to do so, he wanted to make sure that he was there for anyone that needed anything.
He had this rapport with all of us, and whether you were the gopher of the staff or the chief of staff, you know, you had access to him, and he had access to you. He wanted to know you know, how you were, how your family was. He and you know, Beverly, his wife, you know, just had that interest in, again, serving the community and making sure that we were well. The congressman always, you know, I remember, don't worry about who gets the credit. Just do it. And if somebody else gets the credit, no big deal. We serve the people.
You know, Congressman Young created a huge nest egg. My vision was this to be a relevant organization that was able to convey matters of importance from a neutral perspective to the community. This might be a beacon on a hill, if you will, like a lighthouse, for folks that aren't locked in to the partisanship, can go and get straight answers and be heard and have good discussions.
This is one of the happy outcomes that came with everybody just saying, what more can we do? What can we do to make this work? If anything, it's more important today than it was when we started. You know, clearly we're more polarized. The thing that's always astounded me, though, is how many people want to participate in a non-shouting, information-based dialogue on issues of importance. And today it seems like it's doing just wonderful.
I think some of us that were privileged over the years to know Congressman C.W. Bill Young, I mean, he truly was so civic-minded, so to speak. He spent more time with his constituents than he spent probably in Washington, D.C. But I think when he came up with this concept of making this nonpartisan and trying to find a way in the future to involve our students as well as our community in not only the local and the state, but even the national issues, it certainly was a great step forward. I think Congressman Young would have been proud of how the Institute was developed, how it kind of moved forward in a nonpartisan way, and also how it certainly involved not only students, but also the community at large. I think it's just a great asset to Pinellas County and the state of Florida. It's a great asset to the students as well as the community at large that are politically minded. And unfortunately, if we look locally or statewide right now, there is a lot of polarization, but the Institute is at least a vehicle that kind of can minimize that and bring these issues back to a nonpartisan, center-of-the-road debate, so to speak. And that's what I would hope could continue to happen in the future.
When you talk to him, you got the feeling you were the only person in the world. And he just focused in on you. And it was mesmerizing. And he was so genuine. I miss him. I to this day, I miss him. But he would talk and he'd get excited. And he got especially excited, not only about the notion of civility in politics and having a mechanism on a forum, and probably we were using the word institute, but a place where we could have civil discussions about politics and issues, policy issues.
When Dr. Cutler approached him about the idea of the Institute, I think it was part of that, continuing that conversation, having people talk to each other, having forums so that people could understand different positions on issues. I think that was kind of the way he always operated. So his legacy, I mean, he passed away 10 years ago, but that legacy will live on as long as the Institute lives on.
He was such a gentleman and so kind and so compassionate and so simple. Every day, Bill would have dinner with his kids. Now, if he couldn't be home to have dinner with his kids because the house was in session late, he would make me bring his sons in and have dinner with Dad. He would never miss his kids. All parties loved him. They knew that they could rely on him to do what was the right thing. He never voted just Republican or just Democrat. He would tell me when I voted, I should vote for the person and what the person has to offer and what the person says, and then make them stick to it.
The most meaningful thing to him, because of his desire to help others, was the founding of the Marrow Registry program. They told him that they would need, hundreds of thousands of people in this registry to ever make it work. And they said, you'll never get 10,000 people to be willing to do this. And the last I checked, it was over 10 million people. He used the Department of the Navy to set this up. And now, I mean, people are living every day from bone marrow transplants. And I think that, you know, that was kind of quietly his crowning achievement was that long after he's gone, what the research that he provided funding for and legislation for is going to save lives for the rest of humanity.
When I retired, I became a courier for the program. And so I will go now to different hospitals to pick up product to take to another hospital for the transplant. The first trip I took after I had retired was to Washington. And I'm getting off the plane, and the congressman was getting ready. It was a turnaround flight. So the congressman was at the same gate, getting ready to come back home. What are you doing here, George? I can't tell you. Because we're not supposed to say what we're doing, why, when we're couriers. I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell me? I said, well, I can't tell you, but I held up my bag that had, you know, Be the Match on it. And a tear came down his eye. Because here was the program that he was responsible for. And now I'm still involved in that program.
And I could kind of see the way he approached things, you know, trying to find creative solutions to problems. And I think working with the community to develop the case, whether it was for the Pinellas County Beach Project or All Children's Hospital had needs, working with the military bases, expansion of the Coast Guard. If you look at the Coast Guard, it's the only place in the country where there are 4 Coast Guard stations in one area. You know, all that work were things that he did in cooperation with the community leaders, business leaders, state officials, to try and develop a case for these things. So I think, you know, part of being a statesman is you have to take everybody's viewpoints in and try and figure out how to solve the problems. And he was totally devoted to public policy and trying to help not just the community in the state, but the entire country. He worked hard because he believed in the country. The country was great to him. He was that true American story of anybody can rise up to be a leader in the country. He knew that people, if given a chance, you know, the American dream could be theirs.
Before there was ever an institute, there was Congressman Young.
Yes.
And Congressman Young was special to so many organizations and businesses and of course the college in Pinellas County. Congressman Young was very involved in the campus in terms of that Project Eagle. He got money for some of our supplies and buildings, and as you know, the largest building on the Seminole campus is the C.W. Young building.
Yes.
Called the University Partnership Center building. And so that's how this all started.
Just amazing how down-to-earth Congressman Young was and how many local meetings he went to, even though all of his responsibilities were in Washington. I mean, you're talking about somebody right in our own community. He was chairman of Ways and Means, you head of the International Intelligence Committee. I mean, all these things that, you know, sometimes you look in the newspaper and you say, boy, I wonder if I could ever meet somebody like that. And here he is right in our own community at the same neighborhood meetings I'm at, shaking hands with the same people I'm shaking hands with. It was really an inspiration to me to not follow in his footsteps, so to speak, because you couldn't do that, but certainly to follow the lead that he led to us, and that was just to be a public servant, listen to people, and try and do it in a nonpartisan way. And I think that his whole life represented that.
He had respect for everybody. It didn't matter whether you were the president or, you know, whatever. He had respect for you, and in return, people had respect for him. And I think that was what made him so successful, was that just he had respect for everyone and everything. And, you know, whether it was someone running against him or, you know, someone he was arguing with on the House floor, it was always respectful. And I really think that word kind of summarizes his life and career, just respect.
Bill never wanted a pat on the back. Bill never wanted acknowledgement. That's the kind of person Bill Young was that people didn't see. This is who Bill Young is. This is the Bill Young that we know.
The first day that I was elected to the Florida State Senate, and a lot of folks gathered around at the victory party to congratulate me, and I said to them, what do I do next? And I'm not sure that I knew what I was going to do next. I think that is the story of the why of this institute. What this institute is designed to do is to prepare people to understand what their government is about. Thank you for supporting this great institution. Thank you for supporting St. Petersburg College, and God bless you, everyone.